What's going on, y'all? KM Best here, fresh off of a 35-18 run in High Infinite with the best deck in Marvel Snap. Maybe the best deck Marvel Snap has ever had, as much as it pains me to say that, Arishem. A lot of people ask what makes this card so good. Its downside does seem very prominent, adding RNG into your draws and also giving you a very prominent weakness to Darkhawk. What makes this deck so good becomes clear when you compare it with other ramp tools in the game. Let's take a look at Electro as an example. People play Electro, Electro Cersei, Electro Blink. That is a thing that people have played. Now, Electro is a 3-2 that allows you to play ahead of curve for only the final 3 turns of the game under normal circumstances. Arishem allows you to play ahead of curve for the first 3 turns of the game. And this also speaks to just how balanced most Marvel Snap cards are. If you're playing a 4-drop a turn ahead of schedule, it is usually going to be better than the average 3-drop. So it doesn't really matter how bad the cards you're getting are. Even if you're playing Cyclops on 2, Thing on 3, if we could play a 2-4 and a 3-6 in a normal deck, I think we'd be very interested in that. That is the crux of why Arishem is such a powerhouse in this game. So this is the deck that I have chosen, and I am fairly confident that right now, 10 out of these 12 slots are absolutely locked in, with the major flex slots being Valentina and Gwenpool. If you're wondering what to replace them with, I think you can go a lot of different directions. I think that one of the more able replacements for either of them would be Echo, Mobius M. Mobius, Leech, Legion, things of that nature are perfectly acceptable substitutes for these cards in any Arishem deck. You should not feel like they are entirely necessary, and in fact, the RNG-based nature of Arishem makes it kind of hard to tell what the actual best cards for those slots are. If you made me guess, I would say some combination of Echo and Leech ends up profitable, but that is a very inbred metagame decision. Those are cards that are good against the stuff that Arishem gets countered by, right? And so you don't necessarily want to go that far all of the time because the deck is already fairly inbred for this metagame. I do think that in an ideal world where Arishem is like 20% of the metagame, there's less of this Darkhawk blob dance that Arishem decks tend to have with basically everyone else. But right now, we live in this metagame. We can't pretend that we don't. And because of that, it is extremely important that people remember it's not over-teching if they actually are out to get you. It's not paranoia. Everyone is gunning for this deck. You need to be ready for what they're going to do to try to beat you. This card is numero uno and with a bullet on the list of things that people are doing to try to beat Arishem. I have seen Darkhawk in Silver Surfer. I have seen Darkhawk in Loki. I have seen Darkhawk in Ravonna decks. I have seen Darkhawk in Cerebro 3. This is everywhere, and it is your biggest enemy. Darkhawk is going to beat the crap out of you. The only way you can even begin to contest Darkhawk lanes is if you get rid of it with something like Shang or Rogue, or you end up playing multiple blobs and get lucky on those multiple blobs. This is the police. He is here to make you have a less fun time. The other thing people are doing is Loki. And I think this is a consequence of this deck being as inbred as it is. If there was just a touch less other Arishem decks in the meta, I would feel super comfortable cutting Darkhawk, and then a lot of our weakness to Loki would go away. Because a lot of why Loki is good is that Darkhawk will come out of your deck and go to them. And I do think there might be some real value to be accrued in taking the Darkhawk out of this deck. I just don't know if we're at that point just yet. But do keep in mind that I do think we're approaching that inflection point. So with all of that said, let's go through how this deck plays. We're going to do a card-by-card breakdown of each card so you understand its role in the deck. Valentina, I think, is quite replaceable. If I had to replace it with another early game card, I would go Echo because of all the people who are doing Darkhawk Mystique stuff to try to beat you. If I had to replace it with a late game card, I would go Leech for much the same reason. I would not play Cable or Quinjet in this deck. Cable, I think, is just significantly worse than Valentina, and you'd really want to try to cover a different base rather than just replace what Valentina gives you poorly. And Quinjet, I have not been impressed by. Again, it's the kind of thing that in another metagame, I think Quinjet would make a ton of sense. But honestly, whenever I see it, the only thing it's really doing is protecting your stuff from getting rogued by being a card with an ongoing ability. That's most of what Quinjet seems to do. Mystique is quite important both to copy a Darkhawk and to copy Blob. For those who are unaware, Mystique is extremely able to actually copy a Blob. This has never been a relevant thing before because no deck would ever have enough cards in it that copying Blob made sense, but yeah, you can play Blob and then play Mystique and it will become another Blob, and that is your main way of counterplaying things like Darkhawk. Interestingly enough, Absorbing Man could also work. As I talk about this, part of me is thinking, what if we just cut Darkhawk from our own deck and just went all in on being a blob deck and used that to win mirrors? But the threat of Darkhawk in the mirror is actually quite powerful. Again, we are approaching the inflection point at which I would be very happy to cut Darkhawk, though. A lot of why we're approaching that inflection point is because there's so many answers to it in all of these decks. Cards like Rogue are a great example of it because this whole sort of mirror dynamic is built around it. Now, hopefully we can get to a point where that isn't true, and it's getting closer to being not true, but Rogue is in this deck to get Darkhawk. That is the point of why she's here. She does other stuff. Sometimes she'll get an Iron Man, and important tech note, sometimes she will get a blob, and that will not get rid of the power the blob has accrued, but much like Mystique, will turn Rogue into a blob. She will start at 2 power instead of 0, but she will end up actually being a blob. She will have the full effect of a blob. Agent Coulson is an absolute staple in any Arishem deck. There should be no argument about cutting him. He ends up being not necessarily like the best card in the deck, but the best glue card you could possibly have. You play him on turn 2, you get something good to play on turn 3, just as good as it gets. Turn 2 Coulson is extremely strong, and that is the sort of what you do in a normal game where you're not doing anything super unfair. Coulson makes it so that it turns out just curving out with 1 extra energy actually does qualify as super unfair a lot of the time. Shang-Chi is in this deck for a variety of reasons, but honestly, like, we could talk about Darkhawk, we could talk about Blob, we could talk about mirrors, or we could talk about how there's just a ton of big stuff running around, and it's kind of a mistake not to run Shang-Chi at basically any point in any situation you're in this metagame, because it is, again, we're going back to the Darkhawk and the Blob, but it is very centered around these cards that are going to be hittable by Shang-Chi. Loki is a fascinating piece of technology in Arishem. A lot of the mistakes I see people make, especially if they have Quinjet, is like, in a matchup against a non-Arishem deck, they'll play the Quinjet and then they'll play the Loki. Almost always, you would rather have that card in hand for the Loki because you're playing a Loki on turn 3. You have so many turns to do what you need to do. Loki does put you in awkward spots because the mirrors are so very, like, dependent on the big important tech stuff. Blob, Mystique, Darkhawk, Rogue, Shang-Chi, in whatever order you want to put them in. Then you have, like, maybe one of them in your hand and then also a Loki, which is kind of an awkward situation. If you have none of them in your hand, Loki is like the freest mirror win you can possibly get, because you are getting their versions of those cards. They are going to be cheaper, etc., etc. And you just usually end up with a better hand than the one you have when you play Loki, because a lot of the cards in your hand are very often randomly generated, and that can be a big advantage that you get. Against normal decks, Loki is kind of your hammer, right? Because you're really doubling down on the unfair stuff. If you just skip turn 1, skip turn 2, Loki on 3, you're getting like 5 cards with a discount out of their deck, and you have 1 extra energy. It's a very overpowering position to be in, just against a normal deck. Gwenpool falls below the Darkhawk Blob nexus of cards, and also I think below Loki in terms of usefulness here. But I was, like, pretty surprised by just like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. I have nothing bad to say about Gwenpool. If you want something more focused, I totally understand if you want to play Mobius or, you know, Leech or Echo or any of the number of cards we've talked about that are easily replaced into this deck. I think that that is totally 100% acceptable. You can do whatever you want along those lines, and it will probably be fine. Gwenpool was just a good card that I had fun playing, and I kept in the deck and never really saw any reason to cut. But I do think there's going to be a lot of that with Arishem because it's very hard to notice the impact of one card out of 12, let alone one card out of 24. Here is where this deck breakdown turns into a little bit of a rant because I hate this. I pure hate how this card has impacted the metagame, how this card has impacted this matchup. It is intensely frustrating to me that this is still the best deck, despite the fact that this card is so good into it. Despite the fact that Loki is so good into it, I was crushing all of this stuff. And it's like, it doesn't feel like enough, even though it is a 530, which is ridiculous and down to the power of the tech cards, right? But everything spirals out from Darkhawk, right? Why is Darkhawk good? Because it's really good at beating Arishem. Why are Rogue and Shang good? Because they beat Darkhawk. Why is Blob Mystique good? Because they shrink Darkhawk, right? Like, this is all, it's all because of him. And so it turns a lot of games into, okay, I can't snap until I know they're not a Darkhawk Mystique deck. Then, once I've learned that, or I have to be, like, fully prepared for it. So there's a lot of these, like, priority games that you play when your opponent has a Darkhawk because you're like, okay, I need to be able to rogue that. I need to be able to Shang it before they can copy it. And so, like, you have to either have the right setup or be, like, very passive because of the proliferation of this card. And I really do want to cut it. I want to cut it more than anything. I want to not be as weak to Loki. I want that so badly. But, like, oh my god, this guy is good. It's just unbelievable in a mirror. One question I've gotten recently is why I like Mockingbird and don't like Quinjet in Arishem decks. So I figured I'd go through that. The the sort of connection they were drawing is both of them work well with the cards that you randomly generate. However, I think the way I approach it is Mockingbird is big. You get one card that you're randomly generating, you're playing 9 power on turn 3 because you have 4 energy on turn 3, right? Like, this is a card that is going to do more for you just by being huge than Quinjet probably will over the course of an entire game, because you don't build your deck to play the Arishem cards. They happen, usually in the early turns, but the late game is dominated by cards you actually put in your deck to run and put yourself in a scenario to capitalize on. Because of that, Mockingbird being good, just a curve, like a random 3-drop into Mockingbird on 2-3. That's absurd, right? That's just an absurd amount of power. It's dumb. People used to play Mysterio to make Sasquatch, something like that. You just get it from playing a random 3-drop and Mockingbird. It's going to be like roughly the same power as Mysterio Sasquatch. You're probably going to lose out on 2 power total, and that's a thing people used to build decks around, and you just get it for free. It's kind of absurd, right? Like, it really sort of puts a lot into perspective about how good playing above the curve is. The man, the myth, the legend, the character I once cosplayed, the Blob is probably the most important card in this deck. We talk about, well, I guess besides Arishem, right? But like, other than that, the Blob is probably the most important card in this deck because he is simultaneously good in mirrors against the things that beat you, like Darkhawk, and also your best source of large power output in non-mirrors, right? This is a card you get to play on turn 5. It usually gets to like 15 to 20 power. You can copy it with a Mystique. You can play something else alongside the Mystique. That's how you beat normal decks, right? That's what you want to do. And so this endgame is just so strong, right? Like, this is a thing. Again, people used to build decks to ramp into like Blob Zola type stuff. And you don't have to do any of that. You can just play Blob and Mystique it. And it's just like, yeah, it's a little worse than Blob Zola. And actually, I have considered running Zola in here to even hammer the Darkhawk matchup even more. But like, it didn't seem entirely worth it. But it's definitely something to experiment with. Anyway, this is the guy. He is why this deck is alive right now. If it weren't for him, I do think that Darkhawk would have squashed this card, Arishem, like a bug. Alioth has made its way into most Arishem lists, I think, at this point. My original builds were running Magneto. That was wrong. It was an incorrect decision. Alioth is quite powerful because, again, we talk about how everything is about Darkhawk Mystique. Guess who turns off the one card that beats you, right? Like, this is it, right? Your job when someone is trying to beat you with Darkhawk is to put them in a pin between if I lose priority, I get shanged. If I gain priority, I get Alioth. Or sometimes if I lose priority, I get shanged anyway, right? Like, there's so much power in terms of what this deck can bring to bear in terms of stopping the things that are supposed to hard counter it, right? And that is fundamentally why this deck is so good, because there's so many little different parts of this deck that beat the one card that is good into this deck. And you can just afford to do that. Like, it feels like almost we have like 8 slots of this deck dedicated to or doing work into Darkhawk. Shang, Rogue, you have Blob, which means also Mystique, because you Mystique the Blob to shrink their Darkhawk. Alioth, some people run Echo. We have so many slots in this deck dedicated to it, and also they're just good cards anyway, right? But they all do work against the hard counter, and that's important. So yeah, this guy. One thing I've been seeing a lot of is I don't know how they're gonna nerf Arishem. I have a couple proposals. I think it's actually pretty easy. The thing you're supposed to do, if I had to guess, is bump him up maybe in increments of 3 in terms of how many cards he makes start in your deck. Obviously, that makes Darkhawk even more good against him. I still don't like the dynamic, but the goal here is to make him a little less playable, so you want them to be scared. You want them to feel like, oh my god, even I hate this, right? And then, of course, Cassandra Nova coming out. So my thought process would be I would start Arishem at add 18 cards. And then if he was still really good, we could just incrementally move upward by 3. Other things that might need to happen, the Blob Mystique interaction, I would be pretty upset if they fixed that instead of just like adding some cards to Arishem at this point. I do think it might be something on the list of things to fix. And of course, if they really wanted this guy to suck, they could give him the Thanos text. That would be one of the easiest ways to make this card absolutely suck. It would be god-awful. I did the math earlier, and it's sort of like giving up a draw in this deck is so meaningful. It's almost like, imagine he started with 36 cards, and then 24 of them went away after turn 1. That's what him starting in your hand is like. It's crazy bad. I'd like to issue a formal apology to everyone I said was wrong for saying this card was broken or busted very early on. I don't know if I necessarily said they were wrong, but I did say it was too early and that people were just saying it so they could say they were right about it. And so, in line with that, yeah, you were right about it. This guy sucks. I don't necessarily know exactly if he's too strong. I strongly suspect that the best things to do are still countering him. However, every time I try, I lose, and then I just keep playing Arishem. So my subjective experience is, you should probably be playing this guy. He seems pretty messed up to me. And yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the best deck in the game. And I hope that really gave you, I really tried to focus this on, being a comprehensive guide for the deck, for the archetype, so everyone can sort of get on the same page and understand why this guy's good, what you can do about it, and how to play him, and why these deck building decisions are being made. So I really hope you enjoyed that. As always, I've been Cam Best. Before I go, I do have one note. I've been thinking about this for a while, and the season reset gave me the perfect opportunity to talk about it just a little bit, which is I've been really busting my ass to maintain a top 10, top 15 rank over the last couple of seasons. And I think it has resulted in a little bit less enjoyment of what I've been doing. And, I feel like I should be comfortable enough. Many of my friends have assured me that, it's okay. If your rank falls, you go back to being the top 69 guy sometimes. It'll be fine. Internally, it's one of those things that but you don't really intuitively feel. And so it feels scary to me, even though I've been plenty successful before that, right? I do think that, obviously, my value is provided by explaining why top players are doing things. Sometimes I am one of those top players. Sometimes I get super hard reset, which brings me to the second thing I wanted to talk about. The reason the season reset gave me a thing to talk about like this was I lost 1100 SP, and a bunch of people who I finished in front of started above me. And that was just really demoralizing, right? It's just really demoralizing to have like the 2 best finishes of your life back to back. And then the system is just like, actually, there's like 50 people better than you, even though you finished like top 15 2 seasons in a row. It sucked. It was really demoralizing. And I think even if you understand that, like, okay, rank isn't really everything, all that stuff, it's still frustrating to deal with. It was a very unpleasant thing to watch like a bunch of people get reset way less than me and just have a head start. I don't know if it's broken or anything. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. But I'm trying to turn it into a positive and just sort of be a little bit happier with who I am. And this also means, and this is embarrassing to admit, in the amount of gameplay I've been doing, the amount of like busting ass until late night, I've been kind of neglecting the gym and my health. And that sort of contributes to feeling like the only thing that I have to give to the world is my rank and my content. And I really want to try to get back to that. This is not me saying, oh, I'm gonna stop making videos. That's not what's happening here. It's just much more likely that I'm probably going to stop freaking out every time I lose and accepting that sometimes losses happen and just trying to manage that a little bit better if I can. And it also means that maybe the number at the beginning of the video is like 50 instead of 15. And I don't know, maybe I'll get back to 15. I don't know. It is really demoralizing to like see that head start happen to people who you finished above. So I'm sort of still in flux a little bit there, but I mean, I'm still going to be playing at a high level. I'm still going to be competing at a high level, still going to be doing everything that I already have been. I just wanted to sort of get that out there that I'm just going to try and start taking better care of myself and managing my emotions better if I possibly can. So, you know, thank you for sitting through the app. Let's get to some gameplay. I've been KM Best. You've been phenomenal. I will see you in the next one. I wish I could, but everything else is just simply not as good. What's Tucker playing? Discard. I got your Modoc, so I'll snap it. Thoughts on Echo in this deck? Great sub for Valentina if you'd like. Echo and Mobius? I think it's very flexible, honestly. Hello Tribunal? No, it's just normal discard. I remembered from our other game that we played. Lost Rogue Mystique Absman. Noted. So, how big is that? Does anyone remember, was it 14? Was it 14? So they can go to 31, which we beat with this man thing, and then with this Modoc? Right? They can go to 33, which we also beat with this man thing and this Modoc. Depends on how many members. I think that's kind of cope. People love talking about local metas. That's not really a thing. Like, do you hate Arishem? Oh god, do I ever. Oh man, so much. Like, maybe the most of all time. I'm probably gonna have to make a video on it too. Ultra Numb. Oh, that's just Ultra Numb, right? The 4 and the 8, yeah. More than Thanos meta? No, about that much. You run magic in your Arishem deck. Why? I actually really don't like getting rid of a Zola in a situation like this. But I do want to know what the hell's going on. You have a local meta, you're playing the same people. I think local meta, the way people use it, tends to be a lot more cope than real. They use it to say, what if I didn't do a smart thing? Do I have to commit the Iron Man there? Is my real question. See, what I'm hoping here is they read this as a snap on I'm winning the kiln, but it's not. It's actually a snap on you're committing fully to the kiln. Holy shit. Jesus. Whatever they're seeing, but that's not true. I think most people are gonna do the wrong thing in these spots. Okay, so this is bad. Weird. Good replacement for Valentina? Pretty much any card. pretty much any card. Yeah. What? I don't understand what just happened here. But like, I don't want a Stegron here. I might lose on the Stegron. I don't know. Whoa. I don't think they beat it. Six miles is pretty good. Agree. Dude, I have U.S. Agent Luke Cage off the random? That's crazy. They're a Phoenix deck. It's already either too late to snap or extremely inadvisable. What is this? What are they? Should have limboed the gym. Loggers, but there's a New York here. Do we think they go for a clog on New York? They're snapping this. Where are they going to clog? It's got to be New York, right? That's what this is? Get the fuck out of here, Doc Ock! No way, 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 no way. Still kind of losable, I think. Holy shit. Chat, can you believe the fucking beatdown getting handed out right now? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Okay. What kind of Darkhawk deck are you? Oh, a Loki deck. Okay. Fun. Did they forget to draw a card? All right. Play the card Loki. I'm waiting. I'm waiting, bro. Whoa. That's not the card Loki. Fuck. Hope they didn't get that. Let's eat some shit. Leluzi, thank you for the prime. I appreciate it. Gwenpool's... it's hard for me to think of a card that's straight up better than her, you know? Hard to do. That's just a devil dinosaur? Oh my god. What are we doing here? Wow, they stayed. Am I getting Shang middle 2 cards righted? Nope. Not even close. Hold. Fucking... the game really wants me to play Valkyrie. That is so clear. I don't want to discard my blob. Dagger Ghost Spider? What the fuck? Well, ha 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 ha. Let's go! The game wanted me to play 2 Valkyries, and 2 Valkyries I did play. 2 Valkyries I did, in fact, play. When I saw that, I was like, oh, is it Mockingbird? Oh, no, KX. KX, if you pump me 8 here, I'll raid you. No. No one hear that and take that seriously, I'm begging. What's he playing now? Psylop negative? I'll play. I'm stupid like that. He leaves if I snap, right? That's a Zola. Nice fucking try, dude! Yeah, we top decked the Shang-Chi. We top decked the Shang-Chi. We're demonic. We're the worst. We're the worst people to ever live. I don't think that's true necessarily. I guess on balance I guess on balance it is. I don't know. We're gonna hold this Ant-Man because it costs 1. Fuck's sake. Random blob. Are we meant to snap a random blob? Probably. You're not getting that. Top deck was basically like not drawing a card, yes. Ow. Nice. Yeah, I would leave too. It's the play rate making it so inbred and annoying. Actually, maybe it is Arishem's fault, like a little bit. Maybe it actually is Arishem's fault, like a little bit, just for being good enough. But Arishem mirrors are just like very unfortunate, very annoying things. It's more Loki's fault than Arishem. You are on crack. Crackhead take. Ridiculous. Fuck you, Black Cat. Weird. Do I have to try to land this X-23 in the middle? X-23 or Angel, right? Oh my god. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, hold on. X-23, Venom, middle. I'm gaming. I'm gaming. I've gamed. Awesome. High skill cap, he has it or doesn't. Real. Wow, it's the same matchup. Fun. I was going to play that. That's the card I needed. Yeah, I mean, I'm dead, right? scammed out of it. Okay. Another mirror. We get to have the most fun possible in Marvel Snap. Playing Arishem mirrors. Hell yeah, brother. I'm playing that. I get my... Oh my god, I get Sabretooth value? I get double Sabretooth value? Let's go! I would snap this if I had any... Like, this is such a great thing to snap in not an Arishem mirror. Because in an Arishem mirror, only one thing happens, right? Nothing matters in an Arishem mirror other than did you do the things that are actually good? Zero things matter of. So I still need to play into the Vormir, right? Holy fuck. We did it. We had one of the things that mattered in the mirror, and they didn't. We're so lucky. Holy fuck. Oh my god.